in the Vietnamese um, is is the same word. It just means sitting and sitting in meditation. And so Huang Po was a Chinese master in the late 700s, 800s AD, and kind of near the end of the Tang dynasty. And so I wanted to share this with you guys and then talk about it a little bit because I was reading it and I thought it was interesting. So I'm going to read it once and then I'm going to read it again. It's short. Read it again and then ask anybody who's willing to kind of make a comment on it in the chat, and we'll kind of crowdsource this a little bit. But I want to try to engage and get you thinking. So see what you guys think on this. So here it is. Our master came originally from Fujian, but took his vows upon Mount Huangpo in this prefecture while he was still very young. In the center of his forehead was a small lump shaped like a pearl. His voice was soft and agreeable, his character unassuming and placid. Some years after his ordination, while journeying to Mount Tian Tai, he fell in with a monk with whom he soon came to feel like an old acquaintance. So they continued their journey together. Finding the way barred by a mountain stream in a flood, our master leant upon his staff and halted, at which his friend entreated him to proceed. No, you go first, said our master. So the former floated his big straw rain hat on the torrent and easily made his way to the other side. I, sighed the master, have allowed such a fellow to accompany me. I ought to have slain him with a blow of my staff. So that's the end. It's short, and I was doing some research on this. The journey from Mount Huangpo to Mount Tian Tai would have taken somebody in ancient times about 7 to 10 days if they were walking about 25, 30 kilometers a day. And so he met a new friend, a different monk along the way, and then this episode happens. So I want to read it one more time now that you've heard it, and if you don't mind typing in what's your thought about what the master says here at the end of this koan here. So I'll start again. Our master came originally from Fujian, but took his vows upon Mount Huangpo in this prefecture while he was still very young. In the center of his forehead was a small lump shaped like a pearl. His voice was soft and agreeable, his character unassuming and placid. Some years after his ordination, while journeying to Mount Tian Tai, he fell in with a monk with whom he soon came to feel like an old acquaintance. So they continued their journey together. Finding the way barred by a mountain stream in a flood, our master leant upon his staff and halted, at which his friend entreated him to proceed. No, you go first, said our master. So the former floated his big straw rain hat on the torrent and easily made his way to the other side. I, sighed the master, have allowed such a fellow to accompany me. I ought to have slain him with a blow of my staff. So does anybody have any thoughts? Why is the master going to slay his new friend with the blow of his staff? And feel free to type that in the chat, or if you want to unmute and chime in.
I'm interested in the line that he floated his hat across the river. Is that what you said?
Yeah, so I'm reading that he steps on his hat and floats across the river.
Well, it reminds me of gate para some gate, the further shore. And I don't know if that's a reference to that or not. I'm confused. I'm not sure.
That's okay. It is a koan. Anybody else have any thoughts or ideas on that one?
I've got a thought as well. I'm thinking that the master removed the impediment in his way. And so he was free to think pure thoughts.
Ooh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it like that. Any other thoughts? I'm putting you on the spot early. I see. Perhaps he's cranky after only eating rice and beans in the chat, which could be. So as I'm reading this, and I read this about a day after, or maybe even the night of, we had a really interesting discussion in our the Morning Song group, and this was a couple of weeks ago now, especially since I was going to give this talk last Saturday. But we were talking about, I think Taikozen was talking about Nagas, and that led to a discussion of kind of the belief in the supernatural, and I think somebody in the Morning Sangha made that their question for the day, kind of their belief in supernatural or supernatural powers. And so when I was reading this, it really clicked in. It seemed like what the master was saying was that his friend is using supernatural powers that he gained through meditation to overcome obstacles, kind of like Tracy was saying, to overcome this obstacle of the river in a way that he maybe shouldn't be doing, and that's why the master is saying, I should have just taken this guy out for using these supernatural powers. And so it kind of tied into that whole discussion and really got me thinking about this kind of idea of supernatural powers, how what kind of powers do we gain through meditation? What should we do if we're gaining powers through meditation, through this practice, and to go back and really look at what did the Buddha say about this? What did some of the great teachers in history say about using some of these powers and some of these things? I've had experiences that I can't explain when I've been practicing, and so I think that that's a fairly common thing for a lot of people. And so, what do we do with that? How do we compartmentalize that? And I think the other reason I was interested in this was there was some pushback in the group that morning about, should we even be talking about this, which I think is a fair, a fair argument, in kind of a more Western materialist kind of outlook and view towards things. So I started doing some research, and I thought that I would share that with you, and just kind of the hopes that it would kind of get everybody thinking about this a little bit, and kind of give people a way to deal with and process if something comes up in your practice where maybe you start to learn how to walk on water, and what should you be able to do with that. So a couple of places that I was led to in the Abhidharma, it describes the ten powers that a Buddha possesses, and it's the Abhidharma. And if you know anything about the Abhidharma, it is a list of lists. It is a long, long list of lots of different lists that early Buddhists were using to kind of categorize things, and so the lists are pretty big. So this is the ten powers that a Buddha possesses. So I'll kind of try to read through these just so you can kind of get an idea of what they're talking about. So the power to know what is true and what is not. The power to know karmic causality and work in the lives at work in the lives of beings, past, present, and future. The power of knowing all the stages of concentration and meditation, the power of knowing the conditions of life of all people, the power to judge all people's levels of understanding, the power of discerning the superiority or inferiority of all people's capacity, the power of knowing the effects of all people's actions, the power to remember your past lives, the power of knowing when each person will be born and will die, and what realm that person will be born in, and the power of eradicating all illusions. And so I thought that was interesting, and I dug into the Mahayana, where there are spiritual powers kind of given to described as Buddhas and Bodhisattvas having, and this comes from the Avatamsaka Sutra and the Surangama Sutra, but it talks about several different powers. What is it? Six? Yeah, six different powers that a Buddha or Bodhisattva has, and these are a little bit clearer, I think, in my mind. So the first power is that the Buddha Bodhisattva will have supernatural powers, magical powers. They can fly, do things like that, walk on water, grow their hat to the size of a boat and step across a torrent of a river, that kind of thing, described in this koan. The second power is the power of divine ear to hear sounds far away. The third power is the power to read other people's minds. The fourth power is the power to know past lives, recall your previous births. The fifth power is the power of divine eye to see everybody else's rebirth and destiny. So similar to what's described in the Abhidharma sutras there. And then the power of liberation, the power to eliminate all defilements. And so these powers are described, in several places, and having supernatural powers is something that comes up, which was very very interesting to kind of go through and read. See, there's a couple people in the chat here. Check in on that. Yeah, Isha. Yeah, sounds like Taoism. Yeah, 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 Joe. I think so. Yep. Did you see the boot on the road? Yep, yep. I think you guys are on the right track. Yeah, Claudia, these powers are common among us. Yeah, I think that's a great segue to what I was going to transition to. So, what did the Buddha teach on this? What did the Buddha talk about? That clearly in the tradition, in the going back thousands of years, even a little bit less, hundreds of years, it seems like supernatural powers are kind of part of the deal. There's something that can be attained in some way that some people get. Like Claudia said, that a monk told her, these powers are common, like eating oatmeal for breakfast. They're no big deal. And I think that's kind of what the Buddha was getting at. And so I found a couple of different places where the Buddha talks about that, or people try to kind of corner the Buddha into talking about different different powers and what to do, and how was the universe created, and all of that kind of stuff. And so the Buddha basically said that supernatural powers exist, but that's not the goal of the practice. The goal of the practice is to eliminate our greed, our ignorance, and our cravings. And so the goal of practice and is to really get down to the four noble truths. And then you add in the bodhisattva vows to help liberate all beings. And so yes, these powers can exist. Maybe they're super common. I don't know if they're quite as common as eating oatmeal. Again, I've had some weird experiences, but I think the idea is, and I think you're best off if you're having those experiences, to take a breath, be mindful that is happening, and then return to the practice over and over and over again. Always just return to that practice. It's not the goal of practice to attain the power to walk on water, or to see into the minds of others, or things like that, to gain these six powers, or the supernatural powers just described in the Abhidharma. The goal of the practice is to liberate ourselves and to liberate all beings. And so we get off track whenever our practice skews and goes off track towards that. And I'm not saying this to be critical of our having that discussion the other morning in the morning sangha, because it was a great discussion and I really enjoyed it, and it obviously stimulated something within me and got me thinking. But that's good. but return to practice, return to the breath, continue returning to mindfulness of this moment, rather than getting caught up in other things. That's the goal, and I believe that's what Huang Po is saying to his friend there. I should have just taken you out, man. Like, I didn't know you were all about that. It reminds me of a joke I heard a few years ago. Um, and it's Jesus and Moses. So excuse me on that. But Jesus and Moses are playing golf, and Moses goes up, and Moses hits a beautiful shot right down the middle, lands, 3 or 4 bounces, lands right in the middle of the fairway, set up perfectly, and steps back from the tee, and then Jesus goes up, and he takes a swing, and the ball skids off the ground really low. It's a really bad shot. Hits a tree, bounces up, and then all of a sudden there's a big gust of wind, and the ball shoots over into the mouth of a seagull, and then the seagull drops it, and the ball drops down, and it's about to hit the water in the pond, and a fish jumps out and grabs the ball right before it hits the water in the pond. And as the fish is about to dive back down in the water, an eagle comes out of the sky, and the eagle grabs the fish with the ball in its mouth and flies off with the fish. And as the eagle is flying off, the ball drops out of the fish's mouth. The fish is in the eagle's talons, and the ball drops out of the fish's mouth, bounces once, and goes right into the hole. And Jesus kind of turns and looks at Moses and says, or he doesn't say anything, just kind of turns and smirks. He just got a hole in one, and blah blah blah. And Moses kind of looks at him and rolls his eyes and says, "Are are we going to play golf, or are we going to mess around? What are we doing here?" And so it just reminded me of that joke, Huang Po kind of saying the same thing. What are we doing here? Are we going to practice? Are we going to be monks? Are we going to pursue enlightenment? Or are we here to mess around? Are we here to make our hats into a boat where we can walk on water and cross this torrential flood using our superpowers that we gained? That's the superpowers are not the point. The point is our own liberation and the liberation of others. And so the reminder is there: return to practice. When things happen in our lives, things, maybe they're supernatural powers, maybe they're distractions, maybe they're, I've been going through a family argument for the past few weeks, and those kinds of things. When those happen, it's just super important to try to stay grounded and return to practice as much as we possibly can, because we're here for that liberation. We're not here to screw around. Is kind of the idea. So that was the short version of what I discovered. I see that it's 9:30 already, so I'll go ahead and wrap that up there. Appreciate all the comments.
It, um, I have to say, it also reminds me of the story of Milarepa, who
Mhm.
who was, you know, attained powers to seek vengeance on those that betrayed him, etc. And came around to realizing that, there's a better way than just the powers.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're on the right track with that, Michael. Yeah, and I was trying to read Isha's comment here and Jill's comment. Yeah, so appreciate all the comments and sources there, as we talked through that. So let's